Hello, back for week 4. I am busy backing up my computer after not a crash, a problem, let's call it. So remember to back up your data, unlike your silly teacher. Right, we have been working with input methods. So last week we covered listening and reading or vocabulary. I updated the link, so when you click on this, it'll take you to the Prezi. I guess Prezi has changed a lot. I'm still using the classic version, so that's why the link was broken. And there's our YouTube videos there, of course. Now, we had an assessment to do. I'll try and do this weekly. It's similar to what instructors call an exit strategy, which is a way to allow students who prove or show that they understand what happened in the class, what they learned in the class. And this, as you can see, is a few questions, and it checks that you first watched my video and second, you understood the important content. So I'm at about half of you have responded so far. It's only Thursday. And you'll see, most of you are getting about 4, which is good. Down here, not so good. My forms also shows me what they call frequently missed questions. Now, it's not a question that you forgot to answer because actually each question is required. But if we hold it on here, it says questions with a less than 50% correct response rate. So that means more than half of you got it wrong. So let's take a look at this one first. It said, here are some teacher directions. Now, we talked about the difference between teacher directions and student directions. And when you went to the website, you clicked on micro lessons, and I had some examples in week 3 up here. So if you looked at Simon Says, clicked on that, these are the directions for a teacher. And I've taken them from a book which I have like this, which is the Korean version of each of the games. And of course, I have been scanning these. I have a wonderful little toy here called a Scan Snap. It's from a company called Fuji that you may already know. It's not written on it. So I just feed the paper into this and it scans it using what's called OCR software, optical character recognition. So that means it can turn any document into editable text. So when I get some paper and I run it through OCR, I can edit and correct or delete or add text to the document and upload it to you. I'm telling you this because some of you again asked about ways to improve their digital teaching methods. Now, of course, I'm not so young, but I have been in the game longer than you as a teacher, so I'll share what knowledge I do have. But this one is a fantastic little toy to use. And of course, I have a whole series of these books, which is the English version of the games and activities. Most of these are accessible in the DNUE library. So let me just try that now. And voila! When I go to the website, slima.dnue.ac.kr, and I log in and I type in writing with children, I find this. By the way, when you type in, it has to be no space, because as you can see, there is no space. If I leave a space like this, children, the book doesn't come up. So it has to be no space. So yeah, those are available in the library should you be asked to do, especially English major, games activities in the future. Or of course, you can come and raid my office. Okay, so I gave you these. Now, once again, we were saying these are directions from one teacher to another teacher. And this question is focused on what you would say to children, not to another teacher. So you take this language and you see it now. This one was for crossword chains. So if I skip back to crossword chains, the English, and I think it was this one, split the class into teams of 4 to 10 children. Give each team a photocopy of a 10 by 10 grid. So that was this part here, this sentence and the third sentence. Now, if we look at the responses, you can see the correct one, first of all. Make teams of 4. It is a short sentence. If I pause. So we said from the PDF, which was clicking number 3, these are the things to avoid. These are the things to use. So nice, short or brief sentences with full grammatical English. Specific language, not vague language. Easy vocabulary, no difficult words. And first and second person, I, me, you, and student names, and simple present tense. That's the goal. The rest you'll just have to sound out and think for yourself which one sounds best. So make teams of 4. Team 1, here's your paper. Team 2, take this. Team 3, take this. Now again, students actually don't need to understand this to complete the action. They just receive the paper. You're just thrusting a paper into the student's hand and there you have it. Many of you have said this, make 4 teams, each team must take a paper. That's not as simple as this. Now you might say, well, that's not short, you're saying so much, but really all one team is listening to is this and take this. That's all they're listening to. You're using a modal here, must. And we said try to avoid using must, could, should, like that. Right. Split into teams of 4 to 10. Now, okay, and take one of the papers each. Each is vague. Is that each team, each person, each player? It's got a run-on, or rather a compound sentence, and it's not as short as it could be. And then the last one we said, we need teams of 4 with every team having one of these grids. So again, we're using this complex structure with or because these are difficult joining sentence structures, so those are to be avoided. So that did cause problems. Not an easy question, but that's my thinking there. Which would be the most effective? In this case, simplest. The simplest instruction is the most effective because you consider TEE as a bridge. You want to start your game or activity as quickly as possible because the game or activity is what you have planned or somebody else who made the game has planned to get students practicing using some vocabulary or grammar. If you could give the instructions in Korean, things would get started much quicker. But the idea behind TEE is more absorption of English. It's immersion in English. So by listening and figuring out, what does he mean this? And they're forced to listen. And then keeping it as simple and effective as possible builds the students' confidence rather than breaking their confidence. So that question, if we go back to Simon Says, It has something like this: clear a space in the classroom. The children stand facing you in a large semicircle with enough space. So you've got several problems there as teacher language. The children is third person. Stand facing you is not the easiest, but I suppose if you use hand signals, look or facing me, that could be simplified. Semicircle, we said, can be made easier. Half circle. With, adding in clauses in a sentence to make it complex is not good. You don't need this comfortably. That's for you to decide, not to tell students. So if we go back to the question, make a semicircle with your friends. Well, very short. Stand in a semicircle facing the front. We said this could be simplified. Stand in a half circle. So half circle is an improvement from semicircle. Like this is an improvement over the information here because they could be facing in any direction. Like this is a very commonly used expression, especially when you're in the classroom and you're showing students what to do, because there will be students who do not have the English to understand or the concentration. So you need to show by using actions. And then everyone can understand and get started on the game sooner rather than later. Right, so that's the one we went over. Check all the true sentences, so which are true about listening classes. We talked about bottom up and top down. Bottom up, you start with sounds. Right? You build up to words and phrases. Top down, you give them the full text. So they're listening to some authentic material, for example. Minimal pairs is an example of a bottom up activity, looking at contrasting phonemes, not top down. And how many words do you have here? Right, count the number of words in a sentence is a bottom up. Most of you have got that correct. Check all the true sentences. Authentic materials. Now, we said these are materials which are unsimplified. They're not made for the English classroom or any educational classroom. They are things that you're taking from the real world. So it could be maps. Let me pull. So here is an example of things I've done on teacher training programs. These are example of authentic writing sources. Now we're looking at output methods today. So looking at authentic output of writing, these are all sources of real English that you could use. Cards, whether you give for birthday cards, thank you cards, for thank you for the gift, sympathy cards, I'm sorry you're sick, etc. Invitations, journal, diaries, letters, lists, movie reviews, newsletters, headlines, permission slip. Please can you allow, or I allow my son or daughter to partake in that field trip. So this is permission slips for going on an outing, a field trip for school children. Postcards from a holiday where you say, hi everyone, I'm in the sun and you're not. Event programs. So if you're having some gathering of, if it's teaching, it could be a teaching program. Here's what we're going to be looking at today. Chants, poems, riddles, puzzles, experiments, slogans, Nike, just do it, stories, tongue twisters, Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, and these are some other ones that I've said: cookbooks, bumper stickers, a sticker on someone's fender or the bumpy part of your car when you bump it when you're parking. Timetables, we said, in the train station or bus station are good for authentic listening. also good for looking at for reading. And I've got even more further down. Now I have used these with teachers using Seesaw, where I give them examples and they have to tell me which type of writing source it is, and then also any where, who, why, when, what, and language notes. So just as an example, so these are some that teachers have uploaded in different programs, like these diagrams. It's usually, because it's English, that they have to identify things in English. So a plane ticket, tourist tickets, train ticket or tram ticket. So these are various things. Even this, looking at the language on it. So when we look at this tuna can and it says light standard, what does that mean? What is light? What is standard? What alternatives are there? So we could talk about the different names in English. In brine, for example, what's brine? Brine is salt water. In oil, I used to eat this stuff too a long time ago. And you'll see these are all authentic sources for reading and production of language, all things that are around about us. And I had uploaded all my own examples. These are the student examples, but I had uploaded my own examples down here somewhere, long way down. Yeah, things like this, how to exercise your baby, etc. Okay. Right, authentic materials include classroom posters of common questions. No, that's not authentic, that is inauthentic, because the teacher prepared them specifically for the students. Restaurant menus, yes, as long as you did not simplify it. The word seat has one syllable, right, we talked about syllables. I didn't look it up last time, did I? Imjal, that's right, imjal. So seat has one syllable, armchair has two syllables in English. So we talked about that in reference to the kind of problems that students might have, if I can find it again. So I put up a file on the Weebly site about English pronunciation issues for Koreans. Now again, this is my simplified file. It'll make more sense a little later, especially these IPA, the International Phonetic Alphabet symbols that we might look at for phonemic awareness exercises, which I think was week 13. So we might look at it in week 12 video. And these are all good examples of exercises where students practice and look at differences. So this is a great kind of activity you can do for phonemic awareness, where you say one, students cannot see it, and you say, they've ached all day. And they have to look at their paper and tell you which one they heard. Did they hear A or B? So, sorry, students can see this, but they don't know which one you said. So, they've ached all day is A. They've baked all day is B. And you'll see I've deliberately stopped here. But if I run on, they've baked all day, they've ached all day, it gets more difficult. So, c'est boil, the verb is very close. And that's a matter of them looking. Did he beach, ball, boil? So you're closing the lips. And c'est voil is a vibration. It's a different mechanical form. So these are pronunciation activities and good ways to practice, first of all, listening, and second of all, production through speaking or output, which is what we're looking at today. Check all the true sentences about reading classes. Now, we talked about sight words, words that students should memorize because they're quite difficult. They're all very similar to high-frequency words, words that come up often. So high-frequency words are usually sight words, and they include words like and is and it, right? Because even words like desk could be included as high frequency. Digraph. Clue is here, di meaning two. Graph is how you see language. So autograph, you write your name you sign your name if you're famous. Graph is writing. So two letters together is true, but examples would be th, like think, and that. That's a digraph. At and is are words. So those are not examples. And good, most of you have got that correct. That is the lengthy review of our assessment. Now, once again, with micro lessons, our key focus. All of the activities here, A, B, C, D, E, E, yes, because there's only 5 weeks, are focused on speaking activities. So your goal is to get children or your peers, other classmates, speaking. So even with craft activities, when you click on that, you'll see students make something. So you give directions, they follow your directions by listening carefully and watching your wonderful demonstration. But you have to use that craft for something. So I've used it here as a spelling activity. And after they've built their instructions machine, they get a number, they follow the instructions, which two numbers have 3 E's, and they have to think, number 1, okay, that O-N-E, there's 1 E, number 2, no E's, until they find number 11, E-L-E-V-E-N, and 19 also has 3 E's. So they are using it in some game. In this case, just speaking in pairs with their partner. But craft was first because it's the easiest one for both you as teachers and students to do. Then we had grammar, and we have grammar and songs and rhymes, storybook, story maker. All of these are focused on speaking. Even listening lessons and phonemic awareness. Now, we've briefly covered this already through the links that I showed you, like pronunciation issues. These are all speaking activities where, for example, you have to listen and figure out the difference. That's listening. But then they take a try. So with a partner, you know, I say one, say pine, and my partner has to listen, say, A? Right, so you're practicing through speaking of particular sounds or phonemes, in this case P sound and F sound. So it's minimal pairs and pronunciation. So yeah, the last one, phonemic awareness, when we click on this, I might have shown you these activities already, I think, but it gives you more examples of things that you do for good pronunciation. So your pronunciation as a teacher must be clear, which is why it's last, because many of students are not confident in their pronunciation, in which case you should use a recorded example, but the best will be last, right? And you'll see in here again, minimal pairs, listening for a difference, P and B, and there's lots more examples when you look at this uploaded book. So when you go to page 32, as suggested, it takes you down. First of all, it gives you, it tells you what they are, the kinds of the techniques that you use, like odd one out, fine, pine, fine. Was it the first, second, or third word? Second. Fine, pine, fine. So listening for odd one out. And there's lots of different ideas here. Once again, for the micro lessons, the more difficult ones are last for the reasons I've given. Pronunciation, must be careful. They're very short activities, which means instead of doing just 2 or 3 activities, you might do 4 or 5 shorter activities. So when we do get to micro lessons, those who go first without seeing others and getting feedback from me will be more nervous, but they get rewarded by getting the easier activities. Okay, that's enough for part 1. Part 2, we'll be looking at output methods more on speaking and a little on writing.